All right, so good morning. I'm Sara. I hope Greece is amazing, Monty and Elizabeth. We're going to show you some pictures that they so sweetly sent me this morning to show me all about rubbing in where they were. But I hope it's fabulous and even more special and beautiful than those pictures. I figured they must have really wanted to get away to trust me with the microphone again. And I hope that whenever you guys see this, whatever time it is over there, that I haven't been fired and carted out of here or whatever. When Monty asked me to speak today, I did not go running like I did the first time, and I was not like, oh, he's lost his mind, he's crazy. Actually, instead, I just said, well, do I get to talk about anything I want? And his response was, well, Sara, does anybody actually have control over what comes out of your mouth? You can ask Robert. The answer's no. So, touche, Monty. I don't have control over what comes out of my mouth 90% of the time. So, I've spent the last few weeks really praying that God was all in control of what was coming out of my mouth today. For those of you that don't get to hang out with me all the time and experience my craziness, I am the walking definition of an adult female with ADD. So, and I love to learn. So if something sparks my attention or captures my attention, it can consume every thought for days or weeks or months. If it doesn't, then I've already moved on to one of the other 250 tabs that are open in my brain, and I look like I'm listening to you, but I'm not. But fortunately for you all and Monty, something had recently sparked my interest, so I had something in my arsenal of church-appropriate topics to get up here and talk for a few minutes about today. A few months ago, I was listening to the radio, and the morning show host was discussing the Knights of the Templar. Quick history lesson. The Knights of the Templar were a medieval Christian military order founded in 1119 to protect the pilgrims traveling to the Holy Land. They had quickly gained prominence, wealth. They created the first known banks across Europe. In other words, they were impressive or lit or fire or whatever it is you all say, Brittany. Like, I'm not sure what the cool word is these days, but they were that. Okay, so back to the morning show host. She was talking about baptizing the Knights of the Templar. And this was right around the time that we as a church were getting ready to baptize our 9 youth groups. So I heard baptism, my brain turned on, and I got excited. She said, legend has it that in medieval times, when the Knights of the Templar were preparing for their crusades, they would get baptized. Groups of them would march into the river holding their swords. So in my head, I'm visualizing these knights. They're holding their swords. When it was their turn to be baptized with their sword, they would be fully submerged, but they would hold their arm up out of the water like this. And all of these thoughts are running through my brain like, okay, that's weird. Why? But it was to say that they were willing to give everything to God except what happened with that sword and what happened on that battlefield. And in my head, I thought, well, that's crazy. Like, what? Why? Why would they want to keep him out of the one place you would think you would want him? If I'm going into battle, there's people coming at me. I want God there. So why in the world are they willing to give everything to God except what happened there on that battlefield? That made no sense to me. The radio music starts playing. My mind's still back on those nights, still questioning it. And at that moment, driving down the road, as I'm saying, this is ridiculous. This is crazy. If I'm going into that battle, I want God with me. But then all of a sudden, my thinking changed. What if it wasn't crazy? What if those knights were actually being honest? We aren't preparing to go into battle with swords on actual battlefields, but we fight battles every day. And how many of us are holding something back and not surrendering everything to God? I can tell you I would not dare to be that brave or honest as those knights were. I would not dare hold my sword over my head. And just as the knights held their sword above water, we hold things in our lives that we don't fully surrender to God. We have our personal swords, those aspects of our lives where we resist letting go and trusting God completely. Can you imagine getting baptized and holding up your cell phone? Here, God, you can have control over my life, except what I do on this phone, what I look at on here, how much time I spend aimlessly scrolling. That's all still mine. You can have everything else. Or maybe when you get baptized, you're holding up your wallet. God, I'm all yours, except this. That 10% I give you in the church, that's yours. Everything else, that's mine. What I do with my money doesn't concern you. Maybe it's your free time you don't want him to be a part of. Maybe it's your job, your classroom, your friendships, your marriage, food, entertainment choices, your stuff. Maybe you're holding on things to the past. But what is that something you turn to for comfort and satisfaction that isn't Jesus? Mine, I'm about to be honest and real, is a sort of control. Sorry, honey. My need to control can be one of the biggest barriers to my true surrender. I often hold tightly to my own plans, my routines, and my fears. This control can give me a false sense of security, but it can also keep me from experiencing the fullness of God's grace and guidance. I struggle with letting go of control, and many of us find ourselves in a similar battle. The sort of control can become a shield, keeping us from fully and truly relying on God's wisdom and power. Some of us have a sort of comfort. We have comfort zones, areas of our lives where we feel safe and secure, and we hold on to these areas and we don't let God into them. We create a barrier between ourselves and His transformative powers. Whether it's our finances, our relationships, our personal ambitions, we must be willing to surrender all of these comforts to God. Just as the knights kept their swords out of the water, sometimes we keep our comfort zones out of God's reach. Some of you may have a sort of self-reliance. Sometimes we place our trust in ourselves and not in God. It can manifest itself in many ways. Our skills, our knowledge, our resources. While it's important we use the gifts and abilities that God has given us, it's essential to remember that our ultimate reliance should be on Him. By holding on to our self-reliance, we're essentially saying that we trust ourselves more than we trust God. And some of us may be holding on to a sword of past hurts. Our past can be a sword we keep above the water. We may hold on to our past hurts, our regrets, our disappointments, our shame, not fully surrendering them to God. Our past wounds can hinder our ability to embrace healing and, more importantly, forgiveness. True surrender means letting go of that pain and allowing God to heal and transform those areas of our lives. As we reflect on the swords we hold, whatever your sword may be, let us consider the words of Jesus in Matthew 16:24, where He said, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me." Surrender is about denying our own desires and control, taking up that cross and following Jesus with all that we are, not just the 75 to 80% we are willing to give Him on our good days. Today, I encourage each of us to examine what our personal sword might be. Maybe it's your wallet, your cell phone, your relationships, control, self-reliance, hurts, and I could go on and on. Let us bring these swords to God, asking Him to help us lay them down and fully trust Him. In surrender, let us not only find freedom, but also the profound peace and strength that come from fully embracing God's will and His presence to be in every single part of our lives. Let's lay down our swords and allow God to be the true source of our strength and our security.